So, whatever happened to that classic sword and sorcery film from the early 1980s, which didn't make much of a splash in the theaters, but certainly was a staple on early cable television, a true cult classic 1982's Beastmaster? Let's find out. Movies, music, and monsters. Hey my friends, Dan Monroe here, talking about movies, music, and monsters. Oh boy, Beastmaster, 1982. I was 13 years old and unfortunately not old enough to sneak into R-rated movies, at least not that I told my mom about, so I never actually saw this one in the theaters, but holy Jiminy Christmas, did I see it hundreds of times on early cable. Literally, every time you turn on HBO in those early days, there it was, Beastmaster on HBO. Or, hey, Beastmasters on. So many amazing parts of this film burned into my memory, that's for sure. The super cool special effects, the extremely creepy monsters, that really weird eyeball ring, and, of course, the exposed flesh of the super hot chicks in the film. Well, I am shocked, I say, for you to think that I, of all people, would have watched this film simply because of, as a red-blooded American 13-year-old boy, the skimpily clad women running around with all of their feminine parts on display for all to see. I am offended. Yeah, let's go with that. There really isn't a heck of a lot of information out there about this film, despite the enormous fan base all over the world, but I did manage to find some pretty cool information that I never knew before that I now get to share with all of you guys. So, grab your sightseeing eagle, your favorite fluffy ferret, and your barely legal overexposing miniskirt with a bucket of stale popcorn, and let's dive in. Don't move. The beast is fierce, but if we show no fear, we might escape. Now, for those of you who have never seen Beastmaster... Correction, the movie is actually called The Beastmaster. Right? The Beastmaster is essentially the story of Dar, the sole survivor of his tribe, massacred by the evil Jun horde, who has the uncanny ability to communicate with animals and journeys with many different friends and cohorts, both two- and four-legged, to a far-off kingdom to avenge his people, save the king, and, of course, rescue his very well-endowed young girlfriend. What is it with you anyway? She had very well-endowed eyes. They were big and round and beautiful to look at. Yeah, let's just go with that. Super interesting backstory to this first of many Beastmaster films. In 1959, an American sci-fi and fantasy writer named Andre Alice Norton published a novel called The Beastmaster, which in no way represented what we eventually saw in this film. It was total sci-fi with the lead character named Hostine Storm. The only real similarity between the two was that they both revolved around a main character that could in some way communicate with animals, not control, and that's a very important distinction. Never at any time was the Dar character making the animals do something they didn't want, and as stated many times, they were his friends who, after getting a mental suggestion from him for his help, would then go out and help their human companion. Anyway, in the early 1980s, two gentlemen by the name of Paul Pepperman and Don Coscarelli purchased the rights to the novel and began their own screenplay, dramatically changing the story from a sci-fi futuristic adventure to the standard early 1980s sword and sorcerer type film taking place somewhere in our past. Actually, I'm not really sure. I guess. I always assumed it was Earth, but who knows? The original author, Andre Alice Norton, was so upset by all the enormous changes made to her novel, she not only wanted nothing whatsoever to do with the project, but asked for her name to be removed from the credits of the film. Ouch. Yeah, no kidding, right? So, Coscarelli signed on to direct the project. Pepperman became the film's producer, who brought in a co-producer named Silvo Tibet, or Tibet, not really sure which, now heading out to attempt to raise the funds to create the film, giving director Coscarelli his highest budget to work with ever up to that point in his career.
This movie was going to be big, although let me qualify that by saying Beastmaster was a low-budget indie film. And at the time, we were too embarrassed to talk about the budget. We spent about $4.5 to $5 million on that movie back in 1982, which was not a lot of money if you go back and look at it in terms of the horses and the animals and the stunts and all of that stuff.
Wait a minute, I've seen this guy before. I'm sure you have. This is the guy who's really best known for creating the first 4 films in the spectacular Phantasm franchise. The Tall Man. Clearly some distant relative of yours. Clearly. Anyway, to say that this film had a smooth production would be just about the furthest thing from the truth. Coscarelli was extremely frustrated. Like most of the time, he was constantly fighting with the film's executive producer, mostly over the film's editing and casting. For example, originally, Coscarelli wanted a very young 18-year-old unknown actress at the time named Demi Moore for the role of Kiri, but the executive producer told him, absolutely not, no way, and when he inquired as to why, he was simply told because she can't act her way out of a paper bag. Again, ouch. Patience, my friend, all good things come to those who wait, and wow, did we get some good things in this entire cast, really. I had completely forgotten how good this cast really was, with Mark Singer in the lead role, in absolutely fantastic physical shape, the extremely talented and always fun to watch guy with the funny name Rip Torn as High Priest Mayax. The little boy, Tal, played by Joshua Milrad, was actually really very convincing, which most of the time younger actors in Hollywood movies simply aren't. John Amos is great in just about anything he does, really adds a level of, gravitas to the film in my opinion, and rounding out the cast with Tanya Roberts as Kiri, who, yes, greatly inspired the soul of my 13-year-old maleness, but was also a very talented and busy actress working in Hollywood most of her life. Charlie's Angels, the James Bond film, A View to a Kill, Sheena, Queen of the Jungle, and even That 70s Show. Fun fact, Rip Torn in this film plays a villainous enemy of King Zed, and in Men in Black, his character was named Zed. You know, this YouTube channel has been a real blessing. I can tell you that in so many ways. You know, the extra income also helps with things I've struggled with, to be honest, all my life. Overdue bills and debts. Seriously, I don't know if any of you guys are experiencing the same thing. Most people do at some point, and you know, it starts really small with a bill that you either can't or don't want to pay immediately, then you get another one, and before you know it, your mailbox is flooded with all of these final notices and pay immediately letters. Well, there may be a solution with today's sponsor, PDS Debt, where you could be literally 30 seconds away from being debt-free. When I took a look at this company and how easy it is, even for me, someone who knows nothing about any of this stuff, I was really shocked and surprised at how quick and simple it was. PDS Debt has helped hundreds of thousands escape the trap, A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau, thousands of 5-star reviews on Google. Why? Well, I assume, obviously, because it works. There's no minimum credit score required. They're designed to help you save more, putting money back where it belongs in the first place, your pocket, with incredible resources like debt calculators, help with credit card debt, bankruptcy, consultation, collections, resolution. Just 30 seconds could make all the difference. So yeah, get your free assessment today and find the best option for you right now at pdsdebt.com/Dan Monroe. That's pdsdebt.com/Dan Monroe. The possibility of being debt-free in 30 seconds, pretty cool. So take the first step. pdsdebt.com/Dan Monroe. Link in the description. And now back to the Beastmaster. Okay, but this was just a cheaper knockoff of Conan the Barbarian anyway. You couldn't possibly be more wrong, my friend. Both of these films, Beastmaster and the first Conan movie, were literally being filmed at exactly the same time.
The Beastmaster was significant to me in a whole lot of ways. It was an amazing experience. The tiger was named Kipling, and he was one of the most amazingly highly evolved beings I've ever met on this earth. He was like a guru and had such an aura of nobility and such an incredible understanding and delicacy about him. He was the first person I said hello to every morning and the last person I said goodnight to.
The somewhat rushed production began in the winter months, mostly in California's Simi Valley, which, if you can believe it, even for California, was really quite cold, with most of the crew wearing gloves and winter coats, while the stars of the film are basically out there running around in nothing more than extremely undersized loincloths. Wow, that scene where the girls are bathing in the pond must have been a tad chilly. I'm sure it was. You can clearly tell that in the production photos and even in the film that there was a, shall we say, wee nip in the air. Ching. Thank you. But regardless, production trudged on, and one thing I gotta say is that this is a really very beautiful looking film. Gorgeous. The director really had a certain style that was based more on the natural look of a set than rather bringing in oversized artificial lighting. Super cool. The matte paintings in the film were really well done in my opinion. The creature design was awesome. Those giant bat monsters with the enveloping wings that devour their prey were bizarre, very original, never quite seen anything like it, except for maybe the aliens from season 1 of Lost in Space. The makeup on the witches in the temple, not so much. I always thought it was a little odd that they had practically perfect female bodies, but their faces were disformed. I don't know. Whatever. Yes, the dialogue and the delivery of the dialogue is cheesy. I don't know whether that was the result of the director actually wanting it that way, or maybe whether 99% of the film's dialogue was re-recorded later on in post-production. It's all very intense and direct. I will go yonder into the wilderness, stay behind and mind the children kind of thing, but after a while, you get used to it, and it becomes, I don't know, I guess, more charming than annoying. Fun fact, the Black Panther in the movie wasn't actually a Black Panther at all. It was simply a tiger dyed black. Why? Well, because tigers are much easier to train than panthers, and the last thing they needed on set was the beast, eating the master. And speaking of animals, yes, there were a lot of them in this film. The eagle was super cool, but more often than not simply refused to fly on cue. They would literally open the trap door on the bottom of a hot air balloon to get it to, fly in the direction of the camera. Crazy. The enormous Russian bear, which was actually the only bear working in Hollywood at the time, in the scene where young Dar was learning he can communicate with the animals, broke loose and attacked his handler. But what about Kodo and Podo? They were so cute. Actually, about 25 different ferrets played those two parts, mainly because ferrets really aren't all that easily trained, but if baited with enough food, will pretty much go wherever you want them to go. And going back to the tiger that was colored black, well, there were actually 4 of them used in the film to bring the 4-legged character of Rue to life. I don't know why, but it seems like whenever I look at this guy, I think of this guy. Okay, now, upon watching this film again, if I had to nitpick, I guess I'd have to say that the main problems that I had with this film were the length and the double ending. I do absolutely remember the first time I saw this thinking, after they kill Mayax at the temple, okay, well, that was fun, but now I'm ready to move on and do something else. But wait, there's more, like a whole lot more. Another entire section with an enormous battle, which just seems to go on forever. Then the movie ends. I don't know, it just seems to me that maybe, just maybe, mind you, this nearly 2-hour film could have been cleverly edited down to maybe 90 minutes, picking up the tempo, trimming down some of the fat. Well, that is what director Coscarelli wanted in the first place. Come to think of that, you're right. I specifically remember reading that the Hollywood powers that be essentially kicked him out of the editing room completely, even demanding that this first cut of the film, which apparently was quite lean and mean, was too short, and the studio executives wanted a much longer film, so yeah, that's probably the reason. God, studio executives. Interesting, and I never really made this connection until I re-watched this film recently. The musical score by composer and conductor Lee Holdridge was really very memorable. So memorable, in fact, that I kept thinking, wait a minute, I remember this, but not from this film. It's bizarre, and I'm really shocked that there wasn't some type of a copyright issue. But if you listen really closely with a musical ear to one of the main themes in this film, to me, it sounds nearly identical to the theme from Battlestar Galactica. Super fun, super weird. I don't know, just one of those Hollywood tidbits that sort of makes you sit back and go, huh. Fun fact, the filmmakers arranged to have Tanya Roberts appear in Playboy magazine, to help promote the film, but unfortunately that particular issue didn't end up coming out until after the film had already been released. You still bought a copy, didn't you? 3 of them. Now, the Beastmaster was originally planned to open in theaters on Christmas Day, December 25th, 1982, but after United Artists acquired the domestic distribution rights to the film, they rescheduled for a summer 1982 release 4 months earlier, premiering in theaters on August 19th in 16 cities in the U.S. on over 165 screens, opening in 5th place on its opening weekend. And the film basically received very mixed reviews. Some critics critics liked it, some hated it. The New York Times calling it both big and cheap. Many of the reviewers commenting that they thought the film, just like I mentioned earlier, was simply just too long. And talk about a split right down the middle. To this day, it has a score on Rotten Tomatoes of exactly 50%. Okay, but what about all the reboots, remakes, and God help us, reimaginings? Well, in standard Hollywood form, if something works once, yeah, it'll probably work 80 times. So yes, a direct sequel in 1991 with Mark Singer, Beastmaster 2 Through the Portal of Time. Strange little movie, and to save a ton of money on the budget, very similar to the film Masters of the Universe, they brought the Beastmaster into our world, into what was then current-day Los Angeles. Then in 1996, we got a made-for-TV film called Beastmaster 3, The Eye of Braxis, again starring Mark Singer in the role of Dar. Then I think there might have been an American, Canadian, Australian television series without Mark Singer that was very loosely based on the original film, and I think ran from the late 90s until maybe 2002. No idea. Never saw it, but if you know, let me know. But it wasn't all that bad. Apparently, producer Dino De Laurentiis liked the film so much that he offered Don Coscarelli the director's seat for Conan the Destroyer. Sounds like a pretty cool gig. But Coscarelli turned it down because he said, and I quote, "The script is just bad." Okay, but what about all the super cool costumes, sets, and props from the film? Well, there isn't much, hardly anything really, but I did manage to find a few interesting pieces. The eyeball ring? Sadly, no, but there was one of the original screen-used Jun Horde swords that sold a while back for only about $1,000. One of those weird contraptions that Mayax's underlings hung themselves with showed up for auction and went for about $3,500. But here's the really big one and really super cool Dar's original screen-matched metal Kappa, selling at a prop store auction for over $20,000. Super interesting, but super bizarre when director Coscarelli decided to go back and give this film a very badly needed restoration. He found out, much to his disappointment, that the original camera negatives for this film were gone. What do you mean, gone? Lost, extinct, gone with the wind, who knows? Well, actually, that's not true. The director knows, so I'll just let him tell it.
We wanted to find that original camera negative. It was moved out of a decent quality vault by an affiliate of the rights holder and put into his garage. Bottom line is we figured it was probably destroyed there, but it turned out that at Warner Brothers in the vaults there, they had a perfect interpositive struck off the original camera negative. So that's the item that they're using, and man, it looks gorgeous.
The Beastmaster was not only a super cool and fun film to watch, but also one of the very few titles that helped launch the enormously popular HBO and TBS networks in the mid-1980s. Cheesy, yet entertaining, sometimes silly, but more often a really good late-night popcorn flick, taking its place among so many other great sword and sorcerer movies in the 80s and 90s like Excalibur, Dragon Slayer, Conan the Barbarian, The Sword and the Sorcerer, Death Stalker, Krull, Willow, The Barbarians, and so many more. We could be here all day, but that, my friends, is the topic of another video. I really hope you guys enjoyed that trip down memory lane with the Beastmaster, and if you did and you like this kind of stuff, please consider subscribing to the channel. I've got a whole bunch of new videos coming up really soon that I know you guys are just gonna dig. And if you'd like to help support the channel, you can always buy us a coffee. Link in the description. And please feel free to stop back any time as we together continue the conversation on movies, music, and monsters. Sci-fi and outer space fans unite as the Space Museum and Grissom Center present Show Me Space Sci-Fi. Saturday, June 28th, 2025. Meet in person your favorite classic sci-fi robots. Enjoy special guests Dan Monroe from YouTube's Movies, Music, and Monsters, Space Shuttle astronaut Dr. Tom Jones, and more. Watch out for stormtroopers with the 70th Explorers Garrison. Blast off with incredible sci-fi model building and costume contests. Tour the Space Museum, get in on the door prizes, and blast off into excitement. Get your tickets now at eventbrite.com or visit space-mo.org for more information. Don't get lost in space. Join us one day only, Saturday, June 28th at the Space Museum and Grissom Center to enjoy the ultimate celebration of the most iconic sci-fi universes that have captured our imaginations for generations.
Movies, music, and monsters.